Yeah. All right, welcome to Marketing for Developers. All right, so I'm Tracy. I put this up here because a lot of people think that my Twitter username is Lime Darling. It's actually Lime Daring. So I'll be tweeting out um, slides after this because I'm going to throw a lot of resources at you. So that'll be under Lime Daring. See, I do it too. I actually own that Twitter account, and I'm pretty proud of all the little tweaks I did, and yet people still follow it. But yeah, Lime Daring, that's my Twitter. I'm a designer and developer. I kind of call myself an entrepreneur because I kind of fit into a lot of different areas. Basically what I do is I just like to build things and I sell things. And I much prefer the building part of this, but with building and selling, it also includes you have to do a little bit of marketing. So my two major projects, Wedding Lovely is a site I started about 8 years ago, and it's a wedding planner website that I built. I taught myself Python and Django to build it. That kind of started this whole process. And then how I learned Python and Django, I took that and I put that into my book series, Hello Web App. You might have heard of it. Teaches how to build a Django web app. I'm also working on a third book called Hello Web Design, which just was successfully kickstarted. So if anyone in here is a Kickstarter backer, you're awesome. Thank you so much. So marketing is hard. When you are a maker, when you're a designer or a developer, again, it's so much more fun to actually build the product than having to promote it. That's how I feel about it. It's really hard to market what you've built. It's really hard to go out there and try to get people to use what you've built, get bad feedback, potentially, hopefully get good feedback, but it's exhausting. It takes a lot of mental energy. But at the end of the day, if you build something and someone uses it and they say, hey, what you've built changed, not necessarily a life or changed a process or made their lives easier, I don't know, that feeling is amazing. It's so awesome to hear people say, I've used what you've built and it's awesome. So if you're building something, you want people to see it. This talk is really geared towards developer folks like all of us. How do you market your side projects? How do you get people to use, what you've been working on? All right, so number one, less marketing, more general life purpose. If you're building something, try to understand the customer, especially if the customer isn't you. So for example, Wedding Lovely, I am a chick, and so you might think, oh, she's really into weddings. Not so. I'm not into weddings at all. I actually eloped. I said, screw the whole wedding thing. And yet I run this wedding website, which is kind of ridiculous. So I've built this website that the customer isn't necessarily myself, which means that I have to go out and understand that customer. So this is my Feedly. I follow all these wedding blogs, and I don't read them for fun. I read them so I can understand what's going on in the wedding industry and see what people are talking about. So if you're building something for other developers, your life is so much easier because you're building something for people. You are the customer, so it's easier to get into the head of the customer. But if you're building something if you see an opportunity and you build something for the opportunity, but you're not necessarily the customer, the very first thing you need to do is to get into the head of that customer, figure out what people are looking at, what people need, what people are using, and it's going to make your life so much easier when it comes to sharing your product because you're going to understand that market. So you can do things like this, like follow relevant blogs in that area, go to local events, go to local conferences in that area, and really try to understand that customer. All right, next step. Again, not necessarily marketing. Don't forget to add analytics. Don't forget to track how well your marketing efforts are doing, and do this before the site even launched. So I build a lot of different projects. Obviously, the number one thing to use for analytics is Google Analytics. So I have 1.5 billion sites under Google Analytics for all the little things I do. But if you're installing Google Analytics, take a step back and use something like Segment. So segment.com is a tracking code where instead of grabbing the little snippet for Google Analytics and putting it on your site, use Segment instead. And then in Segment, you say, hey, share my data with Google Analytics. And then, if you ever wanted to use another marketing service like Mixpanel or Kissmetrics or any other one of those like little add-on marketing services, you just have to go into Segment and turn those on rather than installing yet another snippet, yet another snippet, yet another snippet. So Segment is a huge time saver when it comes to installing analytics services. All right, and then I need to update the screenshot because it doesn't look like this anymore. So disclosure, this is done by my husband, Andrei Petrov, and I helped design the site. So yes, I am biased. But him and I both launch lots of little services and little apps and everything. And when you have a lot of different projects you're working on, Google Analytics is super annoying to check very often. It's just like this huge bloated, you don't want to go through every one of your services and figure out page views and et cetera. So we built Brief Metrics for us, and it sends an email every Monday saying, hey, this is how things are going. These are your page views compared to last week. These are your referrals. These are the keywords that people are using. You can tie in revenue tracking. So again, disclosure, I helped build this. But Brief Metrics is pretty awesome because you just get an email every Monday telling you how things are doing. You don't have to go into Google Analytics and keep checking because if you're like me, you'll never check. All right, next thing. If you started working on a project, you have a side project in mind, you are thinking on starting to build something, it's not even out yet, have a landing page up. Someplace you start collecting email addresses, someplace on the web that you can point people to when you're talking about your service. Because if you come to a conference like this and you're saying, hey, I'm working on so-and-so, and they're like, wow, that's so awesome. How can I get to it? And they're like, well, it's not launched yet. Check on, ping me later, I'll let you know. Pretty much guarantees that that person's never going to see it ever. But if you have a landing page up, if you have a very small website with a little email form, you say, instead of saying, oh, come back later when it's launched, say, hey, go to this place, put your email address in, you collect that email, and then when you're ready to launch, you have this set of emails already, saved of people who are interested in what you've built. It just saves so much time when you're trying to, it's like pre-marketing your project before it's even launched. You don't know who you're going to run to, at meetups and conferences like this, people who might be potential customers for whatever you're building. You want to make sure that you capture those people, capture their email addresses. So there's a lot of different services that are in this field for helping you, grab email addresses and saving them into a list, and so you can send out notifications when things are launched. So there's Drip, ConvertKit, MailChimp, Campaign Monitor. I use MailChimp, it's kind of expensive. Some of these other ones are geared towards more developer type people like Drip. And then when it comes to building this landing page, if you don't particularly like the process of building a website from scratch, there are things like GitHub Pages. LaunchRock is specifically there, so you can build a landing page and it creates that email form for you. So it doesn't have to be fancy. It can just be the name of your project, a little blurb of what you're trying to build, and a place to capture those emails. And having that up, even when your project is not ready, means that you can take advantage of opportunities of meeting people at events like this and make sure you have a way of contacting them afterwards. All right. Then, make sure to launch as early as possible. DjangoCon, like 6 years ago, my friend Brian Veloso made the mistake of letting me know that he was working on something that he was really excited about, but it wasn't launched, and he's been working on it for 4 years. And this was at the after party at DjangoCon, which means we were a couple of beers in. I pretty much spent the next hour yelling at him that he needed to get his project out because 4 years is entirely too long to work on something without launching it. There's a lot of difference. It's hard to launch. It's hard to launch what you're building. It's, when you push it live and hope people use it or hope people like it. There's a lot of different excuses you can use to delay that scary launch part. One of the excuses is that you want to just keep adding features. I think he was saying to me that his excuse was, I needed to build this. People aren't going to use my project unless I have this. There's going to be one other thing that's going to really make my project shine if I add this one more feature. And this could go on forever. you might know about the whole minimum viable project concept. And essentially, it's whatever you're trying to build, cut it down to like the smallest, easiest size, smallest, easiest project that you could launch. So instead of building, you want to build a car. Instead of building this car and launching it via, instead of building a car and having tires and just 2 tires and then the car frame, and then finally it's usable when you have it as a car, you build a skateboard first, and then you add more features to make it into a scooter, and then you add more features to make it into a motorcycle. So you have this like very small, easy to launch website. You can start getting customers working on using it as early as possible, and then you can continue adding those features after it launches. So don't add features to build a car. Try to build your skateboard, and then keep those features to help enhance that skateboard and make it into a car afterwards. It might be hard to launch because you might be worried about someone judging you, someone having negative feedback, someone who says, "Oh, I don't like this," and that sucks. It's a very real fear. I've launched things that hadn't gone anywhere. I've launched things where someone given me some bad feedback. But generally, 99% of the time, people don't notice it at all unless you do any kind of marketing for it. I had a slide in here, I actually removed it, but my husband launched an open source project, and he put into the source, if you find this comment in the source, let me know, and I will send you $5. And no one found it. And he's a pretty prolific open source contributor. He wrote Eurolib 3. So it's more likely people aren't actually going to see what you've built unless you're actually specifically going out there and trying to market it. It's not going to be this magical, people aren't going to just stumble on your project and say bad things. It's a real fear, I understand it, but the positive effects of launching, like there's more likely someone's going to enjoy what you've built than not. Just try to reassure yourself. And the most important thing about launching a project is that you're going to think about your project differently after launch. As soon as a real customer comes and uses what you've built, it's like that whole product feature plan that you've have in your head, like I want to do this, and then I want to do this, and I'm going to do this. Someone's going to come along and just mess all that up. They're going to start asking for something that you weren't considering. They're going to start asking for features that you didn't think that you needed to have, and your roadmap is going to drastically change from what you thought was going to be before launch. So that's why you want to launch fast, because you want to get to that point. You want to get to that point of, you want to be able to know your roadmap is going to change, and so if you launch as fast as possible, then you're going to get onto that new, more effective path, that journey, that feature journey, working with real customers, than if you're just going off this theoretical roadmap. All right, and then the actual marketing stuff. The easiest, hardest, and best marketing tactic is writing content. It's not, PPC ads, it's not SEO, and this kind of sucks because if you're a product person like me, you much rather be, writing code than writing words. But writing content, writing blog posts, writing about your project is kind of like the Trojan horse of marketing. It doesn't look like marketing, and it's incredibly effective for getting people to see what you've built. So I've been doing this throughout my career, and this is pretty much, I'm on stage because of the writing I have done. This is the very first thing I ever wrote. I started writing about Wedding Lovely. At first I was like, I need a co-founder. This is before I learned Python. And then I was like, co-founders suck, I'm gonna write it myself. And then I wrote this post, which got big on Hacker News, and this is how people found out about Wedding Lovely, was this post went big on Hacker News and people swarmed the website. Even though it's a tech website, I got customers who were planning their wedding. I've continued writing on Wedding Lovely's blog, as well as the Hello Web App blog for my books. I've started writing on Medium for other posts. And this is by far the best tactic that you could use for launching, for talking about your site and getting people to use it, is to write about what you're building. Quick side note, some people, I have a lot of different projects, and so I have a personal blog, I have a Hello Web App blog, I have a Wedding Lovely blog. I don't necessarily recommend that. You can blog under one personal blog and talk about your projects. You don't have to build a blog for each of your projects and blog under those areas. I do it just because I do so many projects that it makes it easy for me to put relevant posts under the different products. So just FYI, you can put all of your writing under your personal blog or on Medium or on your on different products. Just do some sort of writing. And then here's where everything starts tying together, because if you have a landing page, you start building up those email addresses, some way of collecting people that are interested in your product. You write about your product, and then you have this email list that you can send those writings to and get people start getting them interested in what you're building. There's Justin Jackson he does a lot of stuff when it comes to marketing and marketing for developers, and I'll mention some of this stuff a little bit later, but he does this very effectively for what he does. He's a little bit he's a good friend of mine, a little bit of that smarmy marketer thing. But he has these blog posts, he has this email list, he writes a blog post, and then he sends the blog post over to the email list, being like, hey, by the way, I just wrote about this, here's the blog post, it's very down to earth and conversational, and this is how he continues to get people to see what he's written through this email list that he's built. Does a really good job of tying these two things together. So like I mentioned, writing is good for promotion that does not look like promotion. Writing doesn't... It's not like you're going up there and say, hey, people, look at my product. You're saying, hey, here's this writing I did about my product. Also, by the way, here's my product. Check it out. Writing is also good for SEO. This is, like, instead of, like, working on, say, SEO and trying to get Google to see your site by, like, optimizing your landing page, your blog posts, which can give you traffic immediately when it gets shared on services like Hacker News or Reddit or whatnot, can also lead to traffic years down the line of people looking at your product. So this is that post I mentioned really briefly earlier on Wedding Lovely, and this is like the perfect SEO graph, which is like, you know, it's actually higher now. This is actually an old screenshot. The vast majority of not the vast majority, but the majority of traffic that comes through Wedding Lovely comes from this one blog post I did that got big on Google. So writing is also a good way of getting that SEO traffic. You don't know what's going to happen down the line, and hopefully Google approves of what you've written. All right, so writing kind of sucks. You can say, hey, I'm terrible at writing. English is not my first language. I don't like writing. It's really hard. The thing is with writing is that, yes, it sucks. I'd much rather be writing code or doing design than writing. I say that as someone who's written several books. The thing is, the more you do writing, the better you'll get at it. I mean, there's not really a magic key for this, or what do you call it, of any kind of magic around this. It's like the more you do it, the better you'll get. But it doesn't have to be, what you've written, it doesn't have to be perfect to start. You can still, make updates. You can still have people review it for you. Getting over that fear of, it's that same fear as before for launching your product. What if someone judges me? The more you do it, you'll probably get more positive responses than negative responses. And the more you write, the better you'll get, and the easier it'll be. Another complaint is that writing takes too long because, again, you're launching a product and you'd much rather be fixing bugs and adding new features than spending, hours writing a blog post about your project. So it might seem like, writing is going to take hours to days to weeks of, writing a first draft, reviewing it, having people review it for you, writing a second draft or something like that. One of the best pieces of advice when it came to writing I've ever gotten is to write a first draft without revising. So you can't write a sentence and then go, maybe I can write this a different way, erase a sentence, try writing the sentence again, then you get to a whole paragraph and you're like, oh, maybe I should revise my introduction, you go back again. It's kind of like this, when you're doing that kind of revising, it's like your brain is procrastinating or your brain is scared of writing that full blog post, so you constantly think of ways of delaying it and trying to revise because it's not perfect. So if you just keep writing, And you don't fix your spelling errors. You don't fix that wonky sentence in the beginning of the paragraph. You just go through and like train of thought, get that first draft out. And then you walk away from the computer, come back after an hour, overnight. Guarantee you that first draft is actually a lot better than you thought it was. You can then go through and fix your spelling errors and kind of revise the flow. But it's like so much more quicker to just write that first draft and then revise it later, than revising at a time. So, pro tip. And then last but not least, you might be saying, oh, there's nothing original I could say. Like, writing a blog post about how you integrate S3 into your Django project. There's 1.5 billion blog posts about that, so why should I write about that as well? Your writing is guaranteed to be original because it's using your own perspective. And the more articles about a topic, the better, because people read more than one thing. So if you're saying, oh, I have nothing original to say, I challenge you to write anyways. Write about something that's not original. Just put your own, your own thoughts into it, and people will find it interesting. Okay, so we have our landing page up, our email. We started collecting emails. We are writing. And now we have that writing, we want to share it on relevant communities. So again, this is kind of geared towards developers. First thing to think about is, you wrote this blog post, you want to get it up on something like Hacker News. So FYI, Hacker News can be really annoying. If your post gets big on Hacker News, it can be 10s, 20,000 visitors. It could be something that launches, if you're doing a product that's for tech people, it could be something that launches your product. But getting a post on Hacker News is kind of an exercise in frustration. And they have all sorts of algorithms and all sorts of voting ring detections. So, try to share your blog post on Hacker News. If you're discouraged because it doesn't go anywhere, that's my life. That's everyone's life. It seems to be more magic when it gets on Hacker News or not. FYI, try Hacker News. Don't count on it. I really like Reddit. Reddit has a lot of subreddits. So it has programming and startups and entrepreneurship and things that would be relevant for developers. I've posted on the wedding subreddits as well. When it comes to Reddit, they're really allergic to self-promotion. You can't just post on our programming saying, hey, I wrote this. For me, for Hello Web App, it was like, hey, I wrote this tutorial that might be interesting to people on programming or our Django or our Python. I did that, and I was immediately downvoted because people were like, boo, self-promotion, we don't like that here. FYI, that sucks. So what I've done is I've written a long blog post talking again, like basically a blog post in Reddit saying, here's what I've learned. Also, by the way, here's a link to that tutorial I've written. And then people are like, oh, yay, it doesn't look like self-promotion. I want to help people build things and launch it. We don't have to just keep sharing like these giant projects. I wish self-promotion was a little bit more accepted on Reddit. It's very frustrating. There's also Product Hunt. So if you build something and launch it, post on Product Hunt. There's a lot of people who are really, really passionate about products. FYI on Product Hunt, the better tactic to do than just like posting what you've built on Product Hunt is to message someone who is like a super user, I forget what they call it, but like a super Product Hunt person, and have them submit it for you. It's more likely to get more upvotes when it's submitted by someone who is well known. And then for all of the above, if there is a comment form, respond to all the comments you get, because if you post something on Reddit or Hacker News and someone sees 10 comments, they're more likely to click and see what you've written than something with 0 comments. So you can, seed that with an initial comment saying, hey, by the way, I'm the author or I'm the developer. I'm happy to answer your questions, and respond to everyone you get, effectively doubling the comments you get, which means more people are going to be clicking on your link. All right, a little bit about social media. I use this a lot. I kind of hate Twitter now. But Twitter, rah. But I build Twitter accounts for the project I do because I want to share, I don't want to spam my personal account. So I have a Hello Web App account where I share Hello Web App only news, and then I can retweet it from my personal account. So someone can follow one or the other or both, but they won't get double postings. So you can try doing that. If you can try using Facebook. Facebook is super annoying because they do this thing where they hide your posts from people who like your page unless you pay. So Facebook is frustrating, but you can tie, when you write a blog post, you can tie it to Facebook so it automatically shares on Facebook. So it's like no effort on your end, and then maybe someone will find what you've written on Facebook. Might as well. FYI, if you're doing anything that has beautiful, pretty images, if you're sharing products, or anything where someone has like a pretty image, use something like Instagram or Pinterest. These are the premier social networks for people with pretty images. So for Wedding Lovely, obviously there's lovely wedding images. A lot of our traffic comes from just sharing on these services. So if your product involves pretty images, use these two social media networks. And then there's a lot of other social media networks. So take a look at them, see if you can tie together automatically, like pushing to these services whenever you launch something new. Investigate what works best for you. If you want to like use YouTube for video stuff, there's a lot there. All right, wrapping up. Things to consider depending on what you're doing. Kickstarter, I use this a lot for my books, but it doesn't just have to be book stuff or products. People have launched Kickstarter projects for like development projects. So like Getting Started Django is a tutorial series. Schema migrations from Django, obviously added a whole feature to Django. So you can use Kickstarter you want to build a digital product, you can use Kickstarter. FYI, it is so much work, but it could be really awesome because, they raised 18,000 pounds for schema migrations for Django. Kenneth raised $14,000 for a tutorial series. So it can be a lot of money, but it also can be so much work. Talk to me, I have so much more to say about Kickstarter. Cold emailing. I don't like calling, I've cold emailed. This is when I was launching a Wedding Lovely service, and I just sent out a billion emails. Some guidelines if you're emailing people saying, hey, check out my product. Keep your messages short. Sound like a human. Don't make it look like you're sending someone a copy-pasted email. Give them a benefit. So for Wedding Flower Love, when I was launching it, I was like, hey, this is a free service for your company. All you have to do is sign up for free, and you might get a benefit. So people would sign up. And then do it mostly manually than automated. It's better to copy-paste something in and then customize it a little bit rather than using one of these automated services where you just paste in a bunch of emails and it sends out 1.5 billion emails out and it looks like a newsletter. It's better to do it more manually. It takes more time than using those automatic services. It's more likely people would click on the links that you sent out. And then you can use something like Boomerang for Gmail, where it says, hey, if they don't respond in a week, then you can let you know, and then you can send a follow-up email saying, hey, by the way, not sure if you saw my email. That's why all those emails have a parentheses 2 on it. So you can see I didn't get a lot of responses, but I also got some other ones. So it's can take a lot of time, but you could get customers that way. Blogging in general, if you work with other small businesses, just quick side note, you can have them send you content like I do. And I post it on the Wedding Lovely blog. So these businesses share their stuff through my blog. I get the traffic. They're happy because they got published. I'm happy because I got the traffic. And then they share their blog posts with their friends and family, so I even get more traffic. So FYI, if you work with other small businesses or other developers or other humans, you can see if there's some way that you can create this mutually beneficial agreement for content, and then you can reap the benefits. Marketing tactics might not be worth it. Paid advertising, like you're paying for Google AdWords. If you're new to it, you're not spending 100% of your time on it, it's more likely you'll lose more money than you make. That said, I like Reddit ads. They allow you can just tell Reddit ads you only want it on certain subreddits and more granularity. So that's something you could try, but generally I don't recommend paid advertising. Collaborations with other products and businesses. If someone says, hey, I had this similar project, let's promote each other. I have done this so many times over the years. I have never gotten anything where I'm like, that was worth it, all my time. Whoa, hello, go away. It's not my computer. Oh no, it's all over. Seriously, go away. Oh, where were we? Acrobat. Yes, okay. I even had a partnership with Uber, which sounded like an amazing thing until you realize that Uber is a terrible company and they screwed me. Ask me about that later. generally, collaborations with other businesses, small or large, really look at the cost benefit, and it's probably not worth it. It takes more time than it's usually worth. Resources for more, very quickly, because I'm running out of time. Look up things that talk about bootstrapping. There is a Unicorn Free blog, marketing for developers, I mentioned earlier that Justin Jackson's saying. There's conferences for bootstrappers. Hey, look, there's me. I spoke at MicroConf last year. It's like at this time. So all these services are like for small businesses and entrepreneurs and whatnot, and they have a lot of tips about marketing that are very relevant to the average developer. Hacker News, if you look up on Hacker News for things where people are like, take a look at their posts and see, you can learn something, and you also can see how they were in it and how people reacted and give yourself ideas for things that you could write. Again, bootstrapping, there's a Discuss forum for bootstrappers, which a lot of people talk about marketing stuff. Reddit, R startups. In conclusion, marketing, when you're a developer or a product person, it can suck and it can be a lot of mental energy, and it's, especially when you want to spend more time developing or designing. But in general, when people use what you've built and you get good feedback from it, it's such an awesome feeling that makes marketing and sharing your project worth it. So thank you.